Hey, Glass House listeners, today we are going to drop a gift episode in there.
A bonus.
A bonus. Here at Lifeway, we have a number of podcasts that we're very proud of, and one of the things we're trying to do for one another is share each other's episodes. So the first one we want to share with you is with our own producer, Angie Elkins, who has a podcast called Let It Shine. And Lynley, you were a guest on her show recently, so we wanted to share that. What's it about?
Angie and I talked about family rhythms, but mostly we talked about younger kids. And so you and I were just going to kind of talk about how that's progressed a little bit into our older kids for just a little bit to introduce this, and then we'll air the show.
Family rhythms definitely change. I mean, one rhythm we had after church every Sunday, it was like everybody took a nap. When our kids were little, they knew they had to go get in their bed and stay in bed. So there were little things we did as little kids. But now our kids are all huge, and we have to figure out new ways.
But that was all about honor. I mean, that's kind of the topic we want to talk about. And so I trained the kids when we would go to church. I would say, hey, Dad's going to come home. He's preached all morning. He's going to be tired. And to honor him, we're going to lay down, and you're going to be quiet. You don't have to sleep, but you have to stay in your room to allow him to rest for the rest of the day. So, I mean, we did a lot of things like that about...
For the rest of the day? Dad's going to sleep for 14 hours.
No, that's not what I said. You aren't listening. I said he's going to sleep a little bit now so that he can play with you for the rest of the day.
Okay, I get you.
Yes.
Well, the other thing we've tried to do, too, is just teaching the kids how to honor one another. What were we just talking about on that? Because I lost my thought.
Talking about honoring one another when they have a special moment. What brought this up was that just last week, one of our sons was in a tennis finals for his conference, and Ava drove 3 hours to surprise us to be there with him because we've created a culture to where we want to honor each other, and we want to recognize when someone's having a special day.
Yep.
And it meant so much. Like we've done this so long now that neither you or I asked her to do that. She just recognized that, I want to be there for Miles, whether he plays good or bad, just to know the ministry of presence. We've talked about that, and not presents, which I like, but presence, being present with somebody.
I like to be present and get a present.
Me too. Let's do both. Why don't you present me with a present?
Well, we're really grateful for Let It Shine and for Angie's passion for it. So why don't we roll this conversation, and I hope you enjoy.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Lynley, I think one of the coolest things about being a parent really is beginning to form these rhythms or habits with your family, as you have kids and they grow up that you maybe don't even see coming, but a lot of times they're sort of born out of necessity. Has that been your
definitely
experience?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, for me, they were part of my personality. I mean, my personality is like disciplined and structured, and but also for survival. I mean, for me, when the kids were little, and for those who don't know me, I mean, we had 4 in 4 years.
Yeah.
And so many families out there have the same story, that it's really close. They have kids close in age. And so for me, it was like, we have got to decide what our values are, what our structure is going to be, all the habits, all those things.
I love that you mentioned values, because I know you and Ben talk a lot about your family values that you actually created. And you know what? We're going to link in the show notes to the episode of The Glass House where you really go into depth about that. But what I would love to talk about today is like, what was the necessity of that? When did you decide we need to like really talk through what's important to our family?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So when the kids were little, I'll tell you a story. You and I were meeting recently with a woman here at Lifeway.
Yeah.
And she said, I can do this because I'm really good at it. And she said it so humbly, but also confidently, that I was so like, wow, that was impressive. And so I was thinking about this episode a little bit, and I thought, I am not a great parent to teenagers. Like, that's not been my sweet spot. But when the kids were younger, that was my sweet spot, when they were in formative years. So that's kind of the backstory. So we really didn't have to come up with values for probably the first 6-7 years of their life, because my personality was fit for that age. Well, then they get into elementary school, and you do have to change your parenting style, because, you can't just control it. You can't tell them what they're going to do, all those things. And Ben and I, at the same time, were planning a church. And as we're coming up with values for our church, we're sitting here thinking, why are we coming up with values for our church and not for our family? Because every family has values, whether they're named or not.
That's right.
And so then we went through this process of, well, what are some values for us? What's important? What's non-negotiables? We went through a whole list of character qualities that we wanted when our kids were 18 or older, when they left the house, and then narrowed it down to 7 and 8.
Yeah. I think that's so great and so intentional, right? I mean, I think about with our family, just little habits that we got into that really kind of became liturgies, if you want to use that word.
Yeah.
Like when my kids were all old enough to get in the car by themselves and buckle their seatbelts alone.
Yeah.
It was out of necessity because I didn't trust that they all had their seatbelts buckled. I mean, now the car would tell me, right, if they weren't buckled in. But back then, it didn't tell me. And so I had to call their name, and they would say, check.
That's so funny. You're like a Disney World family. You're the lady who comes by and like pulls the tag
pull the yellow strap for me.
Yes,
yeah, that was us. But I mean, things like that. But when we think about our family habits and things like that, we all probably intend to, maybe not every single time, but we pray before our meals.
Right.
I mean, that's a family ritual. That's a liturgy, really. Every morning when I get up, I go in the living room and I open the blinds. That is the way I start the day.
Yeah.
I wake up the day that way.
Yeah.
I think everybody listening is probably thinking, I do that too. I mean, that's nothing. But it's really part of the waking up ritual in my house. My husband doesn't do that. He'll go in and sit in the dark.
Yeah.
And do whatever. And then I come in and wake the house up. That's what we say. Wake up the house.
You know what's so funny about this is that Ben will swear that he has no rituals. Like he doesn't do anything long term.
Okay.
Except for every night. I mean, at 9 o'clock, he gets the coffee pot ready for the next morning. And I'm like, oh, wait, you can do something. Because he says, I can't do anything for an extended period of time because he just gets bored of it. I'm like, I guess you can if it comes to your coffee.
I love that. That's so great. Well, let's talk through some of our habits or some of our rituals because I know that there are people listening. This is one of the things that I love to listen to.
Okay.
I love to hear how other people do things. It gives me great ideas, and I may not want to copy exactly what you do, but I'll figure out how it applies to my family.
Sure.
So let's go first. Just tell me what you want to talk about, and I'm going to jump in.
Do you want me to talk about a habit that we do?
Yeah.
Or something that we do?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sure. So we've told you about this before, but our kids now, like I said, they're teenagers, their schedules are busy. And so we have a group thread like every family has. And we just say, hey, we're having a closer, family closer at 9 o'clock or at 9:30 or whenever it is. And they know to come down that we're going to have some sort of family time. And that doesn't even always mean a Bible study. And for the most part, it's not a Bible study.
Yeah.
We don't do devotionals as a family. I wish we would, but it's really hard.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so we come down and that we either talk about our high-low of the day, we talk about something, exciting happening, going on, a feeling that we're feeling. We're trying to teach our boys how to identify feelings.
That's good.
It's such a hard thing to teach them.
Do you do the feelings wheel?
We do. Yeah,
okay.
We do the feelings wheel. I mean, we pull it out and of course they are like, oh, the feelings wheel.
Right.
But they always pick one. I mean, and sometimes they're sarcastic because one of the feelings is boredom, and so somebody one time was like, boredom. But in seriousness, then, we laugh about it, but then we make them all pick one and they do. And so, I mean, that's just a fun family. Our family closer is a fun thing.
I love that. Do you guys do family dinner most nights or is everybody kind of going everywhere?
We totally did. And so, that's something that I was thinking about. We had a saying, we would say, stay lean as long as you can. And what I mean by that is for us, out of necessity, with Ben's job as a pastor and 4 kids, we didn't let every kid play every sport. I mean, we just couldn't. We couldn't do travel ball because we had to be there on the weekends, which so many people will relate to. So we just stayed lean and we had family dinners almost every night. And so to a point to where I was actually very judgmental growing up, like in the elementary years, of why do more people not have family dinners? But now, we're juggling sports and jobs and Ava's at college. I mean, so it's just harder. I mean, and so I've definitely become much more gracious with if you don't have them. But when your kids are little, I mean, don't gosh, I can't even think of the word.
Overschedule them.
Overschedule. Yeah, I was like, over sign up. That's not the word, but overschedule them because it's not necessary.
Right.
I mean, take advantage of the time.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because we actually had a rule
Mhm.
that our kids could only do two things,
Mhm.
and one of them had to be a musical
A music.
instrument.
That's it. We did the
Yeah.
same thing. We said you can do a sport or a musical instrument, or you can do one of those. But we just can't do a ton
No.
of sports at the same time.
Mhm.
And luckily for us, 2 of our kids are 12 months apart. So a lot of times they could be on the same sports team. Not that they enjoyed that, but we enjoyed that
Oh,
for
yeah.
carpooling purposes.
So much better.
So, I mean, that was just kind of something like a mantra, if you will, that we said, stay lean as long as you can.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think the family dinner table is so important too,
Mhm.
especially when they're younger, because it lends to that rhythm and that security. Like they feel secure knowing that it's going to happen, even if they protest it. You know?
Yes, I totally agree with that. We used it as a training ground.
Mm,
So our dinner table was a total training ground
that's
because
so good.
of Ben's position. We knew at one point we were going to be church planting, which means you
Mhm.
have a lot of people in your house all the time. You're hosting constantly. And so we used it as a time to where there were times where we made them be quiet. You know, it's not a free for all. You don't get to just say whatever you want to say the whole time. We taught them how to ask questions.
Hmm.
We taught them how to answer questions with a question. You know, I mean, today it's so hard sometimes. Like you go around families and a child will answer the question but doesn't know how to reciprocate.
Hmm.
And so we really used those nights. Sometimes they were just super fun. I mean, we have the best videos from the dinner table where Ben's like making them be silly and that kind of thing. And then there's a lot of nights where we just said, hey, you know, this is the thing. This is what I was telling you about, where we would say, you and I talked about this: rehearse, remind,
Hmm.
reinforce, and reflect.
Yeah.
So we would use it as our rehearsal time.
Okay.
Then when we would go with families to dinner, like out to dinner, we just never had the problem of the kid running around or throwing a fit at the
Mhm.
table, because at home we had done that a lot.
That's so good.
We talked so much about when you're out to dinner with other people, you're honoring them. This is not about you. Like, you're getting a meal, you're getting what you need, but also we're honoring our guest.
Mm.
And so how do we sit at a table and honor those around us and honor our waitress and all those things?
Yeah. That is so good. It reminds me of a couple of things that I did with my kids that I had not even thought about until you started talking.
What was it?
Well, these have to do with church.
Yes.
And I'm sure you have some
Same
too.
thing.
But I remember one day walking into church and there was an elderly man holding the door open, greeting us. And my kids just kind of walked by him
Uh-huh.
and barely paid him any attention.
Mhm.
And I mean, I pulled them over to the side and I was
What
like,
are you doing?
that man is a senior saint and he has probably held that door for so many kids. You are never going to walk by somebody like that again. And so I taught them to shake hands
Mhm.
when they would come in. I mean, which is so awkward for like a 10-year-old boy or
Yeah.
a 7-year-old boy, whatever. And so we did that. But also, and again, born out of something I didn't like, my kids had a friend when they were like teenagers, probably younger teenagers, who would sit with his family in church, but he would always get up like
Yes.
3 times
Yes.
and go to the bathroom or wherever he was going. I don't know.
Yep.
And I told my kids one day, they went, Mom, can I go to the bathroom like during the service? And I said, nope,
No.
no.
This is that rehearse and remind.
Yes.
We go to the bathroom beforehand, and we're not going to get
Yes.
up during the thing.
We're not. This is why we're here.
Mhm.
Like at church, this is why we're here. We come in this room to all be together in corporate worship with these people, singing and listening to what our pastor's preaching. We do not go to the bathroom. So you have to go before, and we get there early enough to go before. And you know what? I only had to say it one time.
Mhm.
And then my kids understood.
Yep.
We don't do that.
Yep.
And I hope we're not coming across as like perfect, because I'm definitely not
Oh,
perfect.
no. I mean, that's what I was saying. I mean,
Yes.
the years I'm in now with my kids being in high school and college are not my sweet spot years. I love them.
Yeah.
Like I love the kids and I love this age, but it's really hard on me to control. I mean, I have to learn to reword my questions as
Yeah.
in, do you want to do this versus you should do this kind of thing. So there's definitely no perfection here. You said something earlier, though, that made me laugh, because we went through a season where every night before my kids went to bed, Ben made them shake his hand.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Because he was watching, I guess, somebody shake some man's
like he was
hand.
teaching them to shake hands.
Yes, because
Okay.
he was like, we are not going to have like the floppy fish handshake, you know,
Yes.
like we're not going to do this like dainty, you shake your hand like a
Yes.
man. And even for Ava, he said, shake hands like a
Be
strong female.
Yeah.
And so every night, instead of a hug, they would give him a handshake. And then they would go into a funny little like hand motion thing.
Yeah.
So it was silly, but I mean, it was just important. He was like, this is a value.
Yeah.
We're going to be
That's right.
strong people.
That's right. I mean, those little things, and there are so many that we teach our kids, and then so many we don't even think about.
Mhm.
I have to teach them how to fold the towel.
Yep.
Like how, things like that we totally forget. But okay, so I just want to bring it back to this. We're not done yet, but these habits are all really exist for a training ground. I mean, like you were saying, we would use dinner time as a training ground, but dinner time doesn't just begin at the table. I mean, it really begins with the meal planning,
Prep.
and then the shopping, and all of it. So there's just the family can be part of all of that, and bringing the ritual of family habits into that meal planning, all of it. Do you do that?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we definitely do that. And I did it better when they were younger again or kind of that elementary, middle school age, because they were home more. So now when I cook less, there's not as much for them to help. But they are great at picking up food for me.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much where we are at this point. But I mean, really, again, it was the younger years where, unlucky for my kids, but lucky for me, I'm probably the most stubborn person I know. And so a temper tantrum, none of that, it didn't affect me
It did not
whatsoever.
bother you
It was
at all.
like, you can just cry till your little heart's content. Like, you're not hungry, you're not dirty. Like, and that doesn't mean I wasn't nurturing,
Right.
if somebody was injured, but
just throwing a fit.
just
for no
throwing
reason.
a fit had no effect on me whatsoever.
Okay, say your R's again.
So rehearse,
Okay.
remind, reinforce, and reflect.
Now, like, walk through them. How does that look?
Sure. So, I mean, if we were going to go to dinner at somebody's house, we'd have a rehearsal, like a dress rehearsal.
Yes,
And what we
okay.
would say is, you will not say, I don't like anything. Like again, this goes back to that honor. Like, we honor this person. They've worked really
Yes.
hard to prepare this meal. And so you will not say that. What you can say, everybody has to have 2 bites of everything on your plate.
Mhm.
And if you quietly want to say to me, no, thank you, that's fine. But you're not going to be like, ew, I don't like that, or I don't eat that.
Right,
And I
right.
mean, we're not going to have like the chicken nugget kids only. And that's
Yeah, that's good.
not, it's some kids that it is a
It-
texture thing.
they're- Yeah.
So I'm not shaming anybody, but for us, it was kind of like I knew what they ate, and I just knew if they were just being picky. So we would rehearse it.
Okay, I just want to say this about what they could say at the table. I got to the point with my kids where I was like, obviously, you can't say I don't like this because I have worked to prepare this.
Yeah.
But you can say it's not my favorite.
Yeah.
and I was like, that's fine.
And
Green
we've
beans
talked-
are not your favorite, but
Right.
we eat things that are not our favorite.
Right. Because it's good for us. I mean,
Yeah.
with Ben literally last night, I was like, there's some strawberries and bananas cut up and you need to eat them because it's good for you and you're 47. But we would rehearse it. And I would be very honest with them too, because even at our home, sometimes they were like, I don't like that.
Mm.
I said, that hurts my feelings.
It does hurt my feelings.
I have
yeah.
feelings too as your mother, and
Mhm.
I worked really hard, and it's been a busy day, and we've been in the car a lot, and so I need you to just, show kindness in that
Right.
what I've done here is for you guys.
Mhm.
So we would rehearse it on the way there. If we're in the car, we'd remind them. I mean, we wouldn't beat it into them, but we'd drive along and have a good time. But right when we got there, we would say, hey guys, remember what we taught you all.
That's so good.
We're going to, honor our guest, and we're going to ask questions, and we're not going to be crazy. We're not going to ask for phones, all those things. Like, we're going to be engaged with them. So we would do that. Afterwards, we would reinforce, like, this was great. And reinforce and reflect in some ways kind of were
Okay.
similar.
Okay.
And
So you would just sort of say, y'all did great at this, or
yeah, and we really honestly would never, no, I shouldn't say never, oftentimes would only say the positive things. Because, the positive is way more
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
But there were times where we'd say, guys, we've trained you on this.
Mhm.
And I don't think it's wrong to tell a child, not a 4-year-old, of course, but, kids that understand in elementary school to say, I hope you did your best, but, next time let's do this. I'm sure that you'll get some sort of flack for this, for me saying that online, but you can edit that out if you need to.
No, we're keeping that. I love it. So when you were doing your 4 R's, it made me think we have 3 L's
Okay.
that we used to say when we would drop the kids off for school every day. And it's these small things like just saying the same words at the same time. I think that are great family habits. We would just say, be a learner, be a leader, and be a light. Those 3 things every day. And our kids now, they'll say it to us,
Yeah.
as we're leaving. Remember, be a light, or a learner, a leader, a light. And just that like little ritual is something that kind of characterized our family. Okay, I wanted to tell you that I have been listening to this book on audio called Habits of the Household by Justin Earley.
Okay.
And I love this. He said, my habits are forming me into a certain kind of parent. So he's talking about his personal habits, like his spiritual rituals, praying in the morning, all of those things that he does are forming him into a certain kind of parent. And his parenting is forming his children into certain kinds of people. And so really we are forming each other, which is so cool to think of it that way.
And scary.
Also very scary. Yes, for sure. Okay.
There was another thing I was going to say real
good.
quick.
Tell me.
So we have some good friends, Jason and Sarah Little, who were on our show.
Oh, yeah. They were on The Glass House.
Yes. And they have a kid that's a little bit older than ours, their oldest. And so they told us a saying that they use in their family, and we totally adopted it and stole it. But it says respect and responsibility equals freedom and privilege. And so that's where we are more this age, because we're beyond the R's for our kids. But if somebody's kind of out of line and they don't understand, we just say, hey, respect and responsibility equals freedom and privilege. And so if you want this freedom that you want so badly as a, new driver, you have to show responsibility.
You have to.
And so that's more of
so
our saying
good.
now. And they would quote that to you.
That's so good. Justin Earley in his book also talks about keystone habits, and it's like these bigger habits that you create for yourself or for your family that actually support all smaller habits. He said exercise is actually a perfect one because when people exercise, they tend to eat better, and then they tend to sleep better, and like all of these habits. And so he talked about a keystone habit for his family. Oh, he did talk about how mealtime extends into hospitality. So I want to add this into what you were just saying about the rehearse, all of that.
Rehearse, remind, reinforce, reflect. Okay.
Because those 4 R's, what you just explained, also teaches your child to have good hospitality, which I know is super important to you. Hospitality is something you talk about all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that. I think it's a great way to teach your children about that.
Well, and even that, we've talked about this before on our podcast, in that whenever we had people over, it was one big table.
Yeah.
There's one big table. There was one
so
giant
good.
conversation. The kids were not at a separate table. The kids weren't excluded from our conversation. Sometimes, of course, we'd go on dates because people needed to talk about adult things. But if we were just having a family over, we were all together.
Right.
So
I think that's so good. So when you guys wake up in the morning, do you have any like wake up rituals, or is it just kind of everybody get yourself down? Now that
everything I do is
teenagers-
pretty ritual.
Okay, tell me.
But this is for me.
Yeah, I know. I want to hear it.
Okay, so I, because I have this weird thing with numbers, I actually set my alarm for 5:31 because the snooze is 9 minutes.
Oh my
and
gosh!
So I have to backtrack snooze.
This is shocking to me. I didn't know.
Or
you were
sometimes
this...
I do it at 5:36 so that when it's 5:45 and that feels like a good even number,
Okay.
on the quarter.
Okay.
Get up, wash my face, make my bed, do my.
Ben's up though.
Oh, he's up at like 4:30.
He gets up a lot earlier.
Yes,
yeah.
he's long gone by the time I wake up. He already has gone for a walk, done his quiet time.
So
he's
you're telling me you get up at 5:45 and Ben is already gone?
Like for hours.
That's insane to me.
He cannot sleep past 4:30.
Okay. Wow.
So every once in a while, I'm like, can you just stay in bed so I can wake up to a person? And
yes.
And he's
That's so
like,
funny.
well, yeah, if we're in a hotel and I can't go anywhere. So anyway, get up about 5:45, do my quiet time, wash my face. It's very ritual, but even the way I open my blinds, it's a little bit OCD. I have a protein shake and a banana, and then I go to my Pure Barre class at 7 a.m.
Yep, you do.
Come home, get ready for my work day. So, then I begin working about 8:45.
So I just have to ask, like, I get up, my alarm is set for 6:30,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have to get any kids up.
Yep.
So I feel like that's pretty early, but not when I talk to you.
I don't like to get up that early, but the kids do get up. And my
Okay.
kids are still home, and so they do get up, and
Yeah.
they have to be up about 6:20. And so, but Ben makes them sandwiches every morning, and
Yeah.
I'm like, why are you still making them sandwiches? They're in high school.
Mhm.
But he said, because I'll miss it one
It's
day.
his ritual.
And I
yeah.
just want to make him sandwiches. So he's already made them sandwiches.
There's another thing he can do.
They're
long-term.
in, well, they do. He's gone, but the sandwiches and a bag of grapes is there every morning.
That's great.
And then they are responsible for putting anything else in their lunch. So, I mean,
Okay.
that's very habitual.
I love that. I love that.
But I was that way. I mean, when they were young, on Saturday nights, being a pastor's wife, literally, like their bags, their
Mhm.
diaper bags were packed
yeah.
because they all four had to have one. I mean, I had oatmeal in a bowl with the spoon, like all facing the same way. So there was 4 bowls with a packet of oatmeal and the spoon facing the same way. So that in the morning, I mean, I just poured the milk in. It was everything was ready because I was like,
Yeah.
it's important for me to be on time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to eliminate every possible thing. But it
That's
was a
good.
habit. I mean, I have pictures of like the oatmeal bowls. I mean, they
That's
were
so
ready to
funny.
go. So
So I actually love that because I do sometimes feel like a hot mess,
Mhm.
in the mornings. And I remember when my kids were little, how hard it was, especially on Sunday mornings,
Mhm.
because Robert would have to be at church before me, and I was left to get the kids ready by myself. And so that prep the night before is absolutely essential to not get to church. Like I
sure.
could say I can get to church on time, but I can't get there happy. I mean, that's the hard part, right?
I mean, I totally backtrack. Like, what time do I have to leave to get there on time?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, early. And what is going to take all of my time ahead of time? And I mean,
Mhm.
and so I would get ready way before they woke up. I'd put on one of Ben's big T-shirts because I knew the kids would spill something on me.
Yes.
I mean, but I was fully ready. And so the minute that we got them ready, I took off that big giant T-shirt and we were out the door.
That's hilarious.
But I mean, it's just backtracking. I mean, which
Yeah.
is the same thing with parenting in general. Like, okay,
Mhm.
if I have an 18-year-old, let's backtrack. And what are the things we want them to learn and know to be
Mhm.
ready?
I love that though, like that you said your morning starts with your habits before you even
Oh, yeah.
pull the family in, because I think that's important. I mean, just that quote that I just read to you, our habits form us
Mhm.
and which form our parenting,
Mhm.
and then the parenting forms them.
Mhm.
So I think that's so cool. I do that same thing. So now I don't have kids that I have to wake up. They get themselves up. I have 2 still at home. They get themselves up and do their thing,
Mhm.
and I don't have to worry about them. It's crazy. But I am in that habit of getting up. I don't always make my bed right away, Lynley. But, I do have these things I do. Like I told you, I like to open the blinds. I make myself a cup of coffee. I mean, all of it's a ritual,
Mhm.
right? But then I go for a walk, which is,
Mhm.
I almost do it almost every day. And I love it.
Yeah.
Like I'm addicted to sunshine.
Yep.
Now.
Oh, me too.
I love it. I love it so much. Okay. Well, I love this. Any closing thoughts?
No, I mean, the thing that we were talking about earlier, if, the theology behind God's a God of order.
Yes.
And, it talks about how, I mean, the Bible so clearly talks about the world is in order. The church, God created the church in order because as people all have gifts to create order. And
Mhm.
so I just think it's really important for people to have family rhythms and to realize it's biblical. It can be different. Like
Yeah.
everybody's family rhythms are going to be different.
Hmm.
That's the beauty of it, but you just need to have some.
Yeah. For
So-
sure.
The Glass House is executive produced by Angie Elkins, edited and engineered by Donnie Gordon with help from Nathan Howard. Show notes and production help from Nikki Ogden. Photography by Emily Bergeron and Bailey Watley. Recorded at the Lifeway Podcast Studio in Brentwood, Tennessee.